We picked up this dresser for $50 on Monday's Thrift haul. We're going to drop the link below if you want to see where we picked it up from. We like to shop at our local thrift stores. Deseret Industries is one of our favorites. It has some damage to the front, gouges in the top, and it's missing its original harp that would have had a mirror behind it. We're going to go ahead and scrub it really good, and we're going to be trying out the Farmhouse Finishes paint. It's a milk paint that doesn't chip as much, and we're hoping that we get a really great finish from it.
So Farmhouse Finishes is milk paint, originally designed for walls and things, but it works really well on furniture. It sticks to just about anything. The really nice thing about this paint is that it's 100% VOC free, and it's also USDA certified as a bio-based product, so you can use it with food and things and feel like it's safe around your kids and your animals. Today we're going to be mixing up two colors. This is light cream, and then we also have snow white. And we're hoping it gives us kind of a real soft, creamy color. When you mix Farmhouse Finishes milk paint up, it's a 1-to-1 mixture. So I'm just gonna measure out one of those. So this is the light cream. It's all powdered up, it's really nice. It comes really well mixed. We've got great consistency with these colors. This is the snow white color. They come in these fun little boxes. This is a quart size, and this is the gallon size. Here's the snow white color. You can tell before we mix them together, it's quite a bit brighter than the light cream. So the thing about Farmhouse Finishes milk paint, when you mix it up, you want to only mix up as much as you think you're going to need for the project, because it does not keep. Okay, so I've got warm water here, and since I have one of my cups of light cream and one of my cups of snow white, I just put 2 cups of warm water in there. You can use a fork or a whisk, or I've even used a brush to mix this up, but I'm gonna just use this immersion blender. It's gonna give us a nice creamy consistency. All right, I'm gonna let that sit for just a minute, let the bubbles cool down, and it'll also help the water dissolve the pigments so that they really bond together.
This piece is pretty clean, but we're just gonna go ahead and wipe it down, make sure there's not any extra grease on it, or marker, which comes through, bleed through. There's like a little, we might have to sand that. It's like almost in the finish there.
So Jamie said it was pretty clean, but this is why you wipe stuff down.
We're ready to paint. We've got our synthetic paint brushes from DIY Paint. You can pick up them and the milk paint at JamiRayVintage.com. So one of our followers, when we shared this, said that they'd never forgive us if we painted it. And I'm just gonna say, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So this was from the 40s. It's not actually antique. It's not as old as you might think, just based off of the dovetailing. Everything eventually will be antique. And it's not like unique, one of a kind.
Yeah, eventually that glass mug that I got from IKEA will be antique.
I actually have a buffet that I didn't paint that everybody's like, oh, it's beautiful. Don't paint that. I've had it for over a year. It's getting painted. And the thing about milk paint and DIY paint is it's non-toxic, it's all natural. They've been painting furniture for years, and milk paint is actually a very old style of paint. This is similar to what they would have painted furniture back in, like in Europe when they do like those French country style finishes. Like everywhere we saw old furniture that had been painted a long time ago. This is the style of paint they would have used.
So the paint is gonna feel pretty thin when you mix it up in a 1-to-1 ratio, but it actually covers pretty well, and it is definitely thin, but just put it on. It's gonna take 2 coats anyway, so get your first base coat on there as even as you can, and even out your brush strokes, and then when you go on with the second coat, you usually get pretty good coverage.
Because this is Farmhouse Finishes, you don't have to add bond to it the way that you do with traditional milk paint, but it's also not supposed to get as chippy, so we'll kind of see what happens. If you like a thicker paint, you can mix it up as thick or as thin as you want. We wanted to follow the exact directions just to see what it did. If you're wondering why we don't take the drawers out, it's because we need to see how far in they go. Because you don't want to paint them and then put them in and then have like a little ridge in there that shows you where, you forgot to paint. And when we're all finished, we pull every single drawer out and we clean the edges and sand it so it's flat, and then they slide nice and neat. If you have a dresser where the drawers go over the edge, then you're definitely gonna wanna pull those out when you're painting. I'm just coming over. Sometimes it has a tendency on that first coat, especially as shiny as this was, to drip a little. So you have to come back and smooth it out before it dries.
So this is what I'm talking about, smoothing your brush strokes out. I'm having trouble getting my brush on this detail here. So what I'm gonna do is I'll paint it all kind of which way and get the coverage down in the cracks. And then I'll come back and smooth the brush strokes out so that they're all going the same direction. And that'll help it dry nice and neat. And you'll get less of like a mismatch where it's all kind of looks like it's going crazy in a bunch of different directions. So when you've got a big flat surface like this, it's best to work really quick and just throw the paint on there as quickly as you possibly can. And then now that I've got kind of coverage on the whole thing, I'm going to take my brush and just smooth that out so that it's less splotchy and we get nice even coverage. So this is the first coat. We'll refer to it as the tack coat. So a tack coat is just a layer that sticks to the dresser, and then the rest of it we will get coverage with when we do the second coat. It might, because it's a lighter color, it might take 2.5, 3 coats.
Farmhouse Finishes does not specifically crackle, but we did get some crackle. There must have been something on the furniture that we didn't get off. I love crackle, so I'm just gonna go with it. If you did not like the crackle, you could sand it, put a few coats of shellac, let it dry completely, and that would probably cover it up. All right, you're gonna get much better coverage on the second coat, but it's probably gonna take 3 coats for full coverage because this is the lighter color. If this was a darker color, 2 coats would probably be good enough.
Well, also the piece was real shiny, meaning it had a slick finish, and it was a darker piece underneath, so we're basically two-toning this dresser.
The nice thing about milk paint and Farmhouse Finishes in general is that it's pretty forgiving. You don't have to be the world's best painter. Just get it on there and smooth it out. Well, you're like, you're dripping paint everywhere.
I think we've established, throw it on quick, smooth it out later. That's how we can paint a dresser in an hour or 2, and have all the coats on and have it be done.
It's what gives it character. After 3 coats, we're still not getting 100% coverage. I would say we have a good 95% coverage. We're gonna be distressing, so I feel like that's good enough for me. If you wanted 100% full coverage, you would let this dry completely, and then you would only spot cover a few areas where it's just a little bit streaky.
Another trick you could do is you could mix it up just a little thicker, so don't do the 1-to-1 ratio. And that might help from the start because it's gonna make your paint cover a little better because it's thick. All right, so that's 3 coats. This is what we're talking about, a touch-up coat. Just come back here, and right here on this spot, we're just gonna hit it. We're not gonna do full coverage on the whole thing. So this is what it looks like with the touch-up on there. So we did 3 coats and then some touch-up, and it's got pretty much full coverage. It's looking really good, and we're just gonna distress it. There's a couple little light spots, but you can't hardly tell. Once we distress it, you won't even notice.
Zeb's gonna be using 220 sandpaper just to go over the flat surfaces, and I just got a damp rag, otherwise known as a wet wipe, and I'm gonna go over the details.
The nice thing about the Farmhouse Finishes is when you sand it, it powders instead of rolling up and getting all goopy like a latex paint wants to.
And it'll get buttery smooth the more you sand it. When you wax it, it's going to go a little darker, but once the wax is all the way dry, it will lighten up a little bit and it'll be ready to buff. Even without sanding, this Farmhouse Finishes stuck really well. It took a few extra coats than we thought just because it is a lighter color. Hopefully this helps you guys figure out the proper steps to using this paint. If you have questions, comment below.
So this is a pretty big dresser. If I built a back for this, we could probably almost pass it off as a small buffet. It took just a little over a pint of paint to get this full coverage.
Be sure to hit up JamiRayVintage.com for the paint and products used today. If you want to know every product that we use, Zep's going to drop them in the description box below. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more
DIY.
Hit the subscribe button.